Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to take you through the McGills Big 3. First up, the modified curl up. The McGills Big 3 is a sequence of 3 different movements that we're going to do for 10-second reps before we do our big main lifts. This is a great movement to prepare before a big lift like a squat or a deadlift, especially if you're still learning how to create a strong brace. Here I'm showing you how I place my hands. It's only really my fingertips that I place underneath my low back, so I have something to push against. You could really see how I expanded my stomach there before I pushed my lower back into my hands slightly. And as you can see, the knock-on effect is that my pelvic position changes, and you can also practice that with both feet on the floor. Back to the movement, zoomed out. Again, I'm taking a big belly breath in, as you can see. I'm pushing into my hands and I'm just lifting my head just a tiny little touch. Now the head part is optional. It's mainly about the core tension. Next up, we have the modified side plank. Now the best way to set up for this is to make sure that both knees are together before we amend the bottom leg position and bend that knee back. So you kind of want to make sure that the knees are stacked. You also want to make sure that the elbow is stacked nicely underneath the shoulder joint there. Now, as you can see, I am twisting my hips slightly just to make sure that both my hip bones are nice and square and facing the wall ahead of me. Now, another way to think about that is being perpendicular to the floor. Keep that hip facing the ceiling really nice and high. Hold for 10 seconds, then bring yourself down, reset, and go again. You might find yourself tempted to do a full side plank when you're doing these, but remember with the McGills Big 3, we're doing these as preparatory work, so there's no need to make these more difficult. A little reminder here to make sure that your hips are fully locked in when you're doing this movement and try and be as straight as possible. That will really help with that core alignment and ultimately feeling your core. One little tip here as well in terms of hip positioning, I like to twist my hip forward a little bit and that helps me find that feeling that I'm looking for of being nice and braced. On to our third and final movement of the McGills Big 3, and this is called a bird dog. We're going to start in a tabletop position, trying to make sure that we are not relaxing our back. This is me really exaggerating here, but try and think about tucking your pelvis under a little bit. And if you look at my upper body there, I'm really pushing the floor away. So again, instead of relaxing, I'm pushing that floor away, almost allowing my upper back to round a little bit and tucking my hips under slightly. Then I slide one leg back. Now this is really important. I really like to teach sliding the leg back first before lifting it up. As you can see, if we lift too high, we get a completely different back position. We want to keep it nice and flat as I'm showing you here. Still making sure that the upper body is working, really pushing that left arm into the floor so that I'm creating tension from my upper body and through my leg that's still on the floor, keeping me stable. And then I'm going to reset. To reset, I quite like to bring my knee and arm into the middle before going back into position. Again, make sure the leg doesn't go too high as I was showing you there. Crunching the ribs down a little bit can be really helpful too to find that position. Okay, different angle. We start with the leg slide and then we're just going to lift the leg off the floor ever so slightly. I like to imagine that I'm just squeezing my glutes to lift my leg off the floor. That's all you really need. Now try to make sure you don't go too high and don't go side to side. You don't want your hip to twist. So again, we're nice and flat. You can almost think of your back literally as a tabletop. If you can balance a glass of water on your low back whilst you're doing it, you're doing a really, really good job. Now finally, just to zoom in on what I'm doing through the upper body again, because it's so very important, I'm pushing the floor away. I'm creating space between my chest and the floor. This is called protraction. Give it a try. It can feel a bit strange the first time we do it. Try and make sure we don't elevate. We don't creep the shoulders up. We're keeping the neck long, shoulders far away from the ears, and pushing our arms through the floor.